Hi, everyone. Welcome. Those of you that are online, we are broadcasting live from Ocean City Library, and we're going to get started here today. Just want to, Brooke, if you give me just 1 minute, I'll tell you when to release the poll. All right, so for those of you that are on Zoom, we have a live audience here who help yourselves to lunch. It looks like the library again provided lunch. Yay. So if you're so inclined to join us in person next year or next month, then please do. My name is Chris Zellers, and I'm with Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Cape May County. I'm the Family and Community Health Sciences agent, educator, assistant professor, whichever title I go with today. And behind the scenes on the Zoom call today is Brooke Shiera, who is the great Oz back there making all the wonderful things happen. So some of you here in person will see things pop up once in a while. I'll get rid of them, hopefully, so we can see what's going on. But I'm going to remain here behind the podium so I can have control over what's going on. And today's presentation is called The 8 Dimensions of Wellness, and we're going to be specifically focusing on emotional wellness. There's actually 10 lessons. So I see some new faces in the audience here in the library. This is a 10-lesson series. If you want to go back and watch any of the ones we've done so far at the library, we have a YouTube page where you can view the recording of them. So you're welcome to do that. Or I do this class pretty regularly. So you're welcome to come out and, hit up one of the classes you might have missed. So far we've done the introduction, we've done physical wellness, we've done spiritual wellness. And then this month, I don't know if you know or not, May is mental health month. So we're doing emotional wellness today. Just as a little bit of a review about Rutgers Cooperative Extension, we are in the cooperative extension structure. Those that might not know that, we're a partnership between the county boards of chosen commissioners, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Currently, Rutgers Cooperative Extension has faculty and or staff in all of this counties throughout New Jersey, which is wonderful, and in one or the other departments. We do have 3 departments. My department, which is Family and Community Health Sciences. We have Agriculture and Natural Resources, and we have 4-H Youth Development. So there are 3 departments. Here at FCHS, we provide outreach on chronic disease prevention, wellness, nutrition, food safety, all the topics that you might think of for keeping yourself and your family well. But we have free resources on our webpage. We have fact sheets and articles and all kinds of great things that you're welcome to help yourself to as needed. And of course, Rutgers is a affirmative action equal opportunity employer. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be doing emotional wellness today, the 8 dimensions and specifically emotional wellness. And I will do a little backtracking to give a little context for those of you who might be joining us new. This curriculum is being written by myself and then my colleague, Jennifer Shakaitis. We teamed up to take, as you'll see, SAMHSA's model of the 8 dimensions of wellness and incorporate them in a community outreach opportunity so people in the community can hear about the 8 dimensions of wellness and how to live a more holistic life that supports overall wellness. So we do have 4 objectives in today's class. We're going to identify the dimensions of wellness. So we'll let you know what they all are. We're going to define overall wellness. We're going to understand how the 8 dimensions of wellness interact with one another. And then specifically to create positive balance. And you're going to hear me say the word positive a lot today. And then we're going to discover ways to achieve, maintain, and improve wellness overall. So hopefully you'll get some pointers as we go through the lesson today on not just emotional wellness, but overall wellness, maintaining that. All right. Sorry for that delay, folks. All right. So let's talk a little bit about exactly what wellness is. So if you've joined one of the classes before, you already realize that wellness is a $4 trillion business. This is huge money. So just like the diet industry, right after the holidays in January, all of a sudden you start seeing all these advertisements for diets and how to get this great diet. Same thing with wellness. It's a really big industry. And I've started taking note of different things and wellness. I was just on one of the trips I was just on for work, it was, considered a wellness area, and they had things like yoga and stuff like that. It was a historic farm. It was serene, so it was very nice. But there's a lot of advertisement and money around the business of wellness. And people have really latched onto this term. I've noticed a big uptake personally, uptick in it since we had COVID, and people were really trying to find ways to take better care of themselves. We recognize that emotional health has become a very trying situation for a lot of people. It's getting a lot more spotlight, which is good, which is really good. But when you think about wellness, like I said, maybe spas or yoga classes or even essential oils, you might think that relate to wellness. But these things can contribute to overall wellness, but they're not necessarily things that you have to have wellness. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how it can be free, how you can have wellness and have it be free and achieve that by just an awareness of what's going on. Thankfully, we did this slide already that messed us up. Okay. So is it a vague term, or is it something that we can really understand? There actually turns out that there is a definition from SAMHSA. SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, and they've created a definition on wellness, and it's a holistic approach, and it is based in science. Now, one thing I didn't mention when I introduced myself to be from Rutgers Cooperative Extension, because Rutgers is an R1 university, we are steeped in research and evidence-based. We try to make sure the information we're giving you is evidence-based, and SAMHSA has worked to make that happen for us. So that's why we use their materials. We also use a lot of other materials, that are kind of focused on the research around sleep and physical activity and nutrition to make sure that we're including that in this definition. So the concept is holistic, like I said, which means it's incorporating everything. And you'll hear me mention that as we go throughout the talk today about how emotional wellness, you can achieve emotional wellness, but you're also going to have to look at the other 7 dimensions and how they interact with that, because it could be your physical dimension is off, or maybe your financial dimension is off, and that could be causing you emotional unwellness. So that's why it's so important to look at the concept of these dimensions holistically. And then, like I said already, it does include 8 dimensions. And let's look at those 8 dimensions. So the 8 dimensions, as you can see, include emotional, spiritual, intellectual, financial, environmental, occupational, and social wellness. And the definition that SAMHSA has written is that they envision wellness not only as the absence of disease, illness, and stress, but also the presence of positive purpose in life, satisfying work and play, joyful relationships, a healthy body, a healthy living environment, and happiness. So I mentioned a minute ago that we were going to talk a lot about positive, and I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we discuss emotional wellness, because there's a lot to be said for positive reinforcement and positive thoughts when it comes to our emotional health, as we'll see as we talk. And again, we're doing emotional here, little arrow. All right, so this is a list with a quick definition for each of the different dimensions. You'll see that the top there, emotional wellness, coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. Our emotional wellness has a lot to do with relationships, as you'll see, and that kind of leaks over into that social dimension, again, how they interact positively and are layered. These are listed in no order of importance. Each dimension is equally as important, but they're in alphabetical order. So that's why that one's at the top. So it doesn't mean that emotional wellness is any more important than spiritual wellness. It just means that they're in ABC order. All right. So an important part of well-being is the balance of the 8 dimensions. And because we all have individual needs, everybody sitting in this room is going to have a different accounting of what their emotional wellness is or what balance it looks like for them. So you need to keep in mind that it's going to be different. It looks like we have some friends here. You're sitting together, maybe. What your emotional balance and wellness is going to be probably different than the person sitting next to you. So just keep that in mind. However, it's good to have conversations and be open about things so you understand what other people are coping with, because then maybe sometimes that could help you as well. Some people might feel very balanced socially, but they might not feel balanced in other areas. So we need to take time to rebalance once in a while. If you're feeling off socially, in your social dimension, then maybe you need to take a little time to interact with good friends, healthy relationships, and that'll help balance not just your social, but your emotional wellness too. And then balance can have a ripple effect, this balance that we're talking about. So to give you an example, maybe if you're employed and you have a job that's really stressful, that could be wreaking havoc not only on your occupational or professional dimension, but it could cause you to feel physically unwell or emotionally unwell. So think about how those dimensions can ripple out, and have a positive effect or even a negative effect on us. But obviously, we're going to go for that positive effect there. SAMHSA says that the emotional dimension involves the ability to express feelings, not always so easy to do, right? Adjust to emotional challenges, cope with life stressors, and enjoy life. And that includes our knowing our strengths, which is sometimes hard to, sometimes it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm good at this, but sometimes we don't always take positive accountability for that. What your strong points are. So it's good to know what those strengths are so you can focus on them and build off of them and use them in a positive way. And also, we want to know about getting and living and working with those positive strengths and weaknesses to help us enjoy our life. I will say that this dimension does mention relationships a lot, and they are important, surrounding, and I'll talk about that, but surrounding ourselves with positive people. Sometimes it's not easy to get negative people out of our lives. I'm getting one of these over there. I get a yeah, so sometimes it's not so easy to do that, but knowing your strengths, that's why I brought this up here. Knowing your strengths and how you maybe can cope a little bit with that relationship, if it's something that you can't get rid of, is important. So think again about the positive things. I encourage you to build yourself up as we talk. It's really, I don't know, it's really easy to talk in negatives, I think, or have onus for things that we shouldn't really be owning. Like, why are we owning this? Like, I thought that, well, that's not my problem, that's their problem, like that kind of stuff, right? And it's very easy to say. But as I mentioned, we want to kind of back this out and think about things are ever changing, and taking time, and we'll talk about this too, taking time to kind of think things through so that you can say, okay, this is my strength and this is how I'm going to positively use it for this relationship, and go back to it again. It's not just a quick, like we live in a society where everything's at our fingertips, but it's not always a quick fix. So just be positive, be patient. I do say all the time, changing a habit like starting exercise or eating healthy, those things takes a lot of times 6 to 8 weeks minimum to get that habit going. So this is not a quick fix. It's not a quick change. Just try to keep that in mind as we move through the conversation. All right. So again, you're going to hear me say that emotional wellness and all the dimensions of wellness take small steps, little things at a time. I'm going to make a lot of suggestions for you today, and we're going to do an activity at the end. For those of you that want to stick around, I'm going to do a quick meditation, because we talk a lot about meditating and how that helps our emotional wellness. And we're also going to talk about relationships and balance and things like that. Remember that one little step at a time. So within this dimension of wellness, like the other dimensions of wellness, there's a lot of suggestions. So just take a little one step at a time thing. Don't do the New Year's resolution thing where you're going to lose weight, start exercising, go out more, go vacation, like all those 50 things that you might put on a resolution list. Try to do things one step at a time, little steps, so that you're not overwhelming yourself and you're more likely to commit to your goals and be emotionally well. Okay. And also think about how these dimensions intermix with each other, how they're supporting each other. All right. So why is emotional wellness so important? Why did I choose to present today on emotional wellness, other than it's one of the 8 dimensions? There's many reasons. And, mental health and our emotional wellness is becoming ever evident. Fortunately, we are really starting to take a look more and more at the importance of mental and emotional health, and I love that. I think that that's very important. And having positive emotional well-being really can create support for the other dimensions, and help us. We know that being emotionally well can support a longer life. I was just having a conversation at the last meeting I was at before I came in, about the blue zone. And a lot of times, you've heard of the blue zone. It was on Netflix, so everybody's heard of it now. But the blue zones, one of the things that they if you don't know what a blue zone is, it's an area of the world that there's a large concentration of centennials. So people that live to be over 100. So there's a fellow that went around and studied these different areas and what the combination was for a longer life. And one of the things is social and emotional wellness. That's a lot of what is seen. I read about them and studied them. And a lot of those overlaps is that social and emotional wellness. So we know that they can create longer life. Emotional wellness can create a longer life and support that longer life. We also know that it can create better physical mobility, right? Emotional wellness, how does that create better physical mobility? It gives us a positive attitude, right? If we have good, positive emotional wellness, then that's going to help us to keep moving. And that too is going to help us prolong our life to have better physical mobility. And then it also helps us with better mental or improved mental function. When you have good emotional health, mental health, you think a lot clearer. I mean, think about it. Think about a time when you were really stressed out, like maybe it was a loss of a close person or something. It probably makes you think like in a vacuum, like what you don't even realize some of the things that were going on. So because you were so emotionally distraught. And that just gives an example of how, that lack of emotional wellness can really make things a lot more hard to function mentally. So just another example of that, and how that is. So one of the things I say all the time, I'm a very big advocate for mental and emotional health and the importance of it. I cannot say it enough. If you fell and broke your arm, would you just say, oh, it'll get better? Probably not. You'd go to the doctor, you'd get an x-ray, you'd get a cast, you'd take care of that. Emotional wellness, same thing. These are places in New Jersey where you can seek help should you need it. I highly encourage it. Do not put it off. If you need professional help and you've gotten to that point where you feel desperate or hopeless, please take advantage of one of these resources. They are there. NAMI is another great resources. MHA is a great resource. SAMHSA is a great resource. So they have a lot of resources on there. If you or a loved one is experiencing any of these, we now have the great 988 that you can call and speak to somebody 24/7, 365. So they're there, and I encourage you to seek help. All right. So again, SAMHSA breaks things down very nicely for us. They have the 8 dimensions, but then within the emotional area, there are three different sections. So we have feelings and emotions, self-care, and stress. And we're going to break those down today for you into those individual areas, to, again, give you an awareness, help you find a positive way to cope with emotional wellness and make it great. So feelings and emotions are, they're hard for some folks, and they're hard to cope with. They're hard to express. Good ways to achieve better emotional wellness is to allow yourself to be open to your emotions and feelings. That's tough for a lot of people. A lot of people were told, keep that in check. You're not, don't go showing that. But just even knowing, allowing yourself, even if it's personal, allowing yourself to feel things is important. You want to be sure to ask yourself if you can acknowledge your feelings in a non-judgmental way. So what we're saying there, sometimes when I'm leading a meditation, I'll say, think about the emotions that you're feeling right now. But instead of saying, I feel sad or I am sad, say it is sad, because that takes the onus off of you again. So again, try to be non-judgmental, or try not to internalize the feelings that you're having, and know that they're feelings and that's okay, but you try not to be judgmental about them. allow yourself to be mad or sad without saying, no, I should not be mad or sad. It's okay to have that emotion. I think a lot of times, you know, I've gone through some, counseling with a professional, counselor. And a lot of times I would feel like, you know, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling mad? And I had a hard time, and I felt guilty for feeling that way. And I think when you look at that non-judgmental aspect, of it, it's okay that you have this great life and a beautiful family, but you still feel sad. And that's when you need, you know, to make sure that you're getting professional help. So it's okay if it's not to the level of professional help. It's okay to say, I feel this way, and that's all right. I'm allowed to have this emotion, even though life is great. So it's okay. If you're not allowing yourself, if you're not allowing yourself to have that non-judgmental acknowledge it, then you might be unbalanced in your emotional wellness, because it could be shifting you off there. It's also really important, to seek safe relationships to express your feelings. So we touched on this a little bit already. If you're in a relationship where it's not so wonderful, then try to find another person to talk to that's supportive and positive for you, so that you can maybe maintain that. Look at your strengths so that you can maintain that relationship. If it's really bad, then get out of it. If you have family and friends that are telling you a relationship is unsafe for you, then you really need to take a minute and think about that and get into a safer relationship, because that is not going to allow you to have, good emotional wellness. If you're not in a healthy relationship, that can throw the whole boat overboard. You also want to look at challenges as an opportunity for growth. So again, the meeting I was just in, I said, everything's a learning opportunity, same concept. I'm an educator. So, you know, my kids will come to me and say, oh, this happened and this is awful. It is, but where can we learn from this? So same thing. If there's a challenge in your life, it's a bummer. I get it, but take it as an opportunity for growth. Look at positively how you can change it for next time, or what did come out of that, so you can recognize it. So take those challenges, and, you know, no matter how challenging they are, try to examine it and find a way to make it positive. The other thing you want to do is know your limitations and set limitations for yourself. I am very, very guilty of not being able to do this. I am one of those can't say no, push ahead type people. That can really wreak havoc on your emotional health. So you want to know what you can and cannot handle. I have a daughter-in-law, and she is fantastic at this. And I have to say, I admire her so much, because I have a hard time with that. So she is really good at saying, no, that's too much. You know, we're going to step back from that. Or, you know, I think I need to take a break from this. So I encourage people, if it's available to you, if say you're overwhelmed in your profession, if you can take like a mental health day in your profession, or if you can just, you know, I know, sometimes when you're retired, there's a lot on your calendar too. If you can take a day back and just take a couple of days or a day to just take a little time to yourself, maybe read a book or do something nice for yourself. So know what your boundaries are and try not to feel overwhelmed. And put boundaries up, so that you know your limitations and that you can use them to your benefit. This kind of goes along the lines of your challenges, but guess what? Everybody makes mistakes. um, Take responsibility for your actions. It's okay. You know those limitations, and know that you're going to make mistakes. If you make a mistake, apologize for it, own it. You'll be respected for it. So, you know, when you're setting your limitations and your goals, make sure that you learn from them and say that you're sorry. Take responsibility for those actions. People are going to be so respectful of you. You know, when I was a young mom and I was raising my kids, one time the neighbor came over and she said, my refrigerator died. Can I put food in your refrigerator? I was like, sure. So she put all her food in my refrigerator, and then she didn't come back for it. So now there's like, you know, ground beef leaking and all this stuff all over my refrigerator. And I open the refrigerator. I go to open the refrigerator, throw the door open, and the kids, I have 3 boys. The kids are crazy. They're acting blah, like they're just being little boys. They're not doing anything wrong. I throw the door open, and this lady's milk comes a whole gallon, comes flying out of my refrigerator. And it's when they used to make the dents in the side. Like, I don't know why they did that, but there's a little round dent. It hit the floor. And when I tell you milk went everywhere, it went everywhere, right? All over the kitchen. It, sprayed all over the room. And I started to scream at the kids, and I'm like, wait a minute. The kids are just having fun. They're not doing anything wrong. So I looked and I said, Mommy's really sorry. I should not have raised my voice in that situation. I apologize. And I use that as my analogy, is there's no sense in crying over spilled milk, because I was literally getting mad at them for something. So I apologized, and they were like, okay, Mom, no problem. But take responsibility for that action. That was me acting out. I shouldn't have acted out of the kids. It was the neighbor that ticked me off. So know what those actions are and take responsibility for them, and say you're sorry. And I feel like that helped when I did things as a mom. It helped my kids recognize the fact that, yep, Mom makes mistakes too, and it's okay to take responsibility for them. All right, so the next area that we have is self-care. And again, this can be difficult. A lot of this emotional stuff is not easy stuff to do, but finding ways to work self-care into your day, it can really go a long way. And it's important because self-care can help to prevent chronic disease, and it can help reduce stress, and that's going to help us to stay emotionally well. I'm going to give you some tips on how to do some self-care later in the talk here. But again, it goes a long way to helping you feel more positive and prevent disease. Think about how you currently provide self-care for yourself. And think about if it's something that you do daily for yourself. Do you take time to care for yourself daily? I think it's really difficult if you're caring for others to, I have a lot of people. We have a group at our office called the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. So they're caregivers that are caring for their grandchildren and have sole responsibility. And we base that whole premise of that program on caregiver wellness. And so we use the 8 dimensions, but we're constantly reinforcing to them, take care of yourself, because they're the last line of defense, for these kids. So it's important for you to take care of yourself, not only if you're a grandparent raising their grandchildren, but everybody. It's important to take care of yourself if you're a caregiver in any capacity. And it's also important even if you're not a caregiver, so you have that time for yourself. So think about what you do and how you do it, and maybe something you want to do to take self-care for yourself, and maybe you can make that one of the goals at the end of the talk today. You also want to engage in supportive social interactions, because this is going to support your emotional health and also help with your self-care goals. Relationships are so important, and we really saw that during COVID. It was hard to get out and have those relationships, but you want to have relationships, again, that are positive, people that respect you, respect your point of view, and that you in turn can respect. And you want to participate in relationships that you feel comfortable, appreciated, and respected in. And that's going to give you optimal self-care for having those good, positive relationships. You want to ask for help when you're in need. That's something that's sometimes hard to do. Again, caregivers often find it hard to ask for help. But if you're really going to take care of yourself, you need to ask. Not everybody can do it on their own. You need to ask for help. So ask someone you're in a positive relationship with, that you feel supportive, a family member, a coworker, a friend, a neighbor. Ask somebody that can positively help you. A lot of times they're going to be thrilled to do it. They're going to be very happy that they're there and offered help. It's going to make them feel good and emotionally well too. So if you need help, don't hesitate to ask for that, because we all need a helping hand sometimes. The next one is calm. We want to find ways to have quiet time and calm time. We're going to talk a little bit more, like I said, at the end. We're going to learn how to do this, but you need to find ways to naturally calm yourself. And this is advantageous because it helps us to avoid substance misuse, because a lot of times people that can't kind of quiet down, they end up having substance use disorder because they're self-medicating to avoid that inability to calm themselves. But we should all find ways to be calmer in the day and suppress. And this is, being calm throughout the day. It's not always easy to do, but a couple things it'll help you with. One, if you can find ways to calm yourself, it'll help you to sleep better. because that means your body is able to like actually slow down at night and not think about everything going through your head. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to help us deal better with those relationships we referred to. So because so many times we are quick on the draw, it's because we're anxious and kind of always in high throttle. So if we can find things that help us calm down during the day, it's going to help us deal with relationships, stop things from flying off the handle so easy. Another thing that can help us with our self-care is to create a daily routine. Sometimes it's a chore to have that. Sometimes you just want to say, I just want to fly by the seat of my pants, right? That's fine. But having a daily routine, a time that you get up in the morning, a time that you go down at night, things that you do in between, whether you're working, you're taking care of people, you're retired or you volunteer, it's important to develop that routine to allow us to care for ourselves. It builds the time into the day that we can take that time to care for ourselves. And that is very important. So try to set up some type of daily routine. If you do create a daily routine that provides for self-care, you want to make sure it also has exercise, sleep in there, good nutrition, and that calmness. And that's going to help us plan for our obligations better. So you saw me come running in here today because I had a meeting before this and I was, ooh. So you don't want to keep getting to that level. I just did a talk on mindful meditation that is on my YouTube page and recorded. But one of the things I mentioned in there is our body has a natural reaction for fight or flight. So that fight or flight helps us when we're in trouble, when we're in danger, and it gives us the ability to be okay. So you want to make sure that you don't trigger that fight or flight all the time. If you're constantly in fight or flight, it's there. So if you see a bear out in the parking lot, you know to run or fight it. But if you're in constant fight or flight, then that's going to give us a little ability to deal with things that we're faced with because we're always going to be in that mode. So we want to have the calm, we want to have the daily routine, and we want to have that plan for obligations so that we're allowing enough time and we're not constantly in fight or flight. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you seek nutrition without distraction. So what does that mean? That means that you don't have your phone on, you don't have the TV on, you're sitting and you're enjoying mindful eating. You're chewing your food. You're enjoying the taste and texture. I always like to use the example. I don't know, anybody ever go on a wine tasting tour and they teach you how to taste the wine. So, you smell it, you look at it, you savor it in your mouth, you kind of swish it around, and then after you swallow it, you think about the taste. Same with food, you don't have to take that long process, but take the time to enjoy what you're eating and drinking. One of the things, again, going back to that centennial living, people that have been found to live longer lives, they take time for mealtime and they enjoy that. So seek good nutrition. It's also going to help you to, maintain a healthy weight. So there's a lot of benefits to that. In the first two sections of emotional wellness, we talked about feelings and emotions, self-care, relationships, and both of those subgroups can help to reduce stress, as I mentioned, as we were talking about it. And that's going to bring us to our final subgroup here, which is stress. So you want to make sure that you're managing stress in a good way. It's hard to do. I feel like when you're in it, it's like, how did I get here? So that's why we want to prepare ahead of time. Identify techniques that work for you personally. So identify ways that you can cope with stress the best way that you can and manage that stress. It's going to be there, right? So we want to make sure that we find good ways to manage it. And I'll talk about that with some of the ways to manage things in a minute. See. We also need to know what triggers our stress. So it's driving, get in a car. I was in a bad accident. So every time I get in the car, what I do, and I always use this example. So I worked with somebody to help me. It was really bad. It was to the point that my husband's like, you have to stop because he's like, you're going to cause me to have an accident because you're stressed, because I'm like climbing in the seat and, twitching and doing this, putting the brakes on. So it's important that you know what your stress triggers are, and then you find coping mechanisms for them. So what I did was I did some talk therapy with someone, and she said, you know, plan ahead, Chris, for your trip. Look ahead, say, okay, this is where I'm going. This is what the traffic scenario could be. I look on Waze and know what I look on all the apps and look at what it's going to be. This is how long it's going to be, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. And so I plan ahead. So if you know you're walking into a stressful situation, try to plan ahead for that. Then I talk to myself positively, like, this is going to be fine. You're good. You're good. So there's different things that trigger people's stress. Know what they are for yourself. Be self-aware, so that can better help you to care for yourself. The other thing that's important to know is feelings will pass. Think about a time that you were really stressed out about something, and then you went, well, that worked out. That goes back to that positive reinforcement. Try to tell yourself that I have the feelings, they're okay. I'm being non-judgmental, and they're going to pass. So just recognize that, because sometimes it's important to reduce stress, to recognize the fact that feelings are there, and they're going to pass. Now, if you feel yourself obsessing over things or planning things out over and over again in your head, you might need to go for some professional help, just to talk to somebody to work through some things that are really stressful for you. And then finally, because you haven't heard me say this yet, be positive. We want to make sure that we're positive with ourselves. Try to keep that glass half empty. This is my analogy all the time: glass half empty, half full. So when I look at something, a stressful situation, I always ask, am I learning something from it? How can I better this next time? But is my glass half empty or half full right now? So look at the positivity in things when you can. And framing things in a more positive way can really help you to get through those stressful situations. All right, so now that we know what the 3 areas of emotional wellness are, let's take a minute and look at some positive ways to implement those concepts in every day, so that we can better balance our emotional wellness. All right, so taking time at the end of each day to reflect, or as you're waking up in the morning, starting your day, maybe it's at breakfast, maybe it's when you first get up, try to take some time to reflect, and learn from your experiences, and so it helps you to better express yourself. My department chair is fantastic. She's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I learned so much from her. And one of the things she's always saying to us is that as professionals in our department, we need to take time to reflect. And it's very true. So personally, professionally, just try to take those times to reflect, count your wins, try to find ways to improve your challenges, and find a way to make them positive, because they're going to help you out. Find habits that positively reinforce yourself. So we're going to reflect and find those moments in every day, but find those habits that help you to reflect on things. So that might be journaling, writing it down, positive things. I just take like a mental list in my head, like, this is a positive thing. If I feel myself really feeling negative, I try to do it a couple times a day, like, this is the positive thing. Like, yes, I really do love my job. It's really stressful right now, but I really love my job. So look at those positive things throughout the day, and then find habits that reinforce that positiveness. So that might be going for a walk in nature, where you have time to do that reflection. It might be the journaling, spending time with somebody that you love, or care for, in a positive relationship. And then taking that time every day, to have that reflection, because it's going to positively impact your emotional wellness. The other thing you want to do is find that comfy place. So like I said before, I've been traveling for the last 6 weeks, since the beginning of April. I'm pooped. But being in my comfy place at home is awesome. So find that comfy place, whether it's a chair or the beach or wherever it is, that you can take time to absorb your emotions and feelings. A lot of times we don't do that. We just trek through. So having the time to try to digest them, make them judgmental, non-judgmental, is going to help you to process them more as you move through every day. So that's kind of the keys to feelings and emotions. And then keys to self-care. Do what you love. Do it a lot, as much as you can, right? So if there's something that fills your cup up, if it's feeling half full, and you can make it, or half empty, and you can make it feel half full, then do what you love and do it often. If that, no matter what that is. And again, this is one of those things that's different for everybody in this room and what they enjoy. I love to read. And in the last couple of weeks, because I've spent a lot of time on airplanes, I've had time to read. So if it's something that you really enjoy doing, take that time, do it often. It's going to make you feel good. And it's going to be self-care for you. Try to find time to yourself. Everybody needs, I know sometimes it's too much time to ourselves, but try to find a little time to yourself. That's going to allow you to de-stress. It's going to allow you time to reflect, like we just talked about. That might be, I don't know, a hot bath. It might be going for a walk. It might be just sitting and listening to the birds or feeling the sun on your face. It could be any of those things. You also want to take care of yourself by eating well, sleeping, and being physically active. And as we talked about in the physical wellness dimension, these are also interrelated. If we eat well and we're physically active, we're going to sleep better. If we sleep better, we're going to eat better, and we're going to be emotionally well. So they're very interactive, just like the other dimensions the dimensions that we see throughout here. There it is again. Be positive. When we started out, I said that SAMHSA doesn't focus on merely physical wellness, which is good, or not being ill, and they focus a lot on the positivity. Having that positive aspects in our life is very helpful to keeping us emotionally well. All right, so hopefully if you're able to manage your self-care and your emotions, it's going to reduce stress in your life, because that's a goal, right? We want to make sure there's less stress in our life. Less stress equals better emotional wellness. And there's certain things that we can do to reduce stress. If we're in a stressful situation, take a step back, right? That reflection that we talked about meditation and calming. If you can take a step back from a stressful situation, it's not always possible. That's going to help to reduce it the next time. Find ways to daily relaxation, practice daily relaxation. That might come from meditation. It might come from conversations. It might come from reducing the way you do things, having a schedule, the amount of things you do. It might be from that schedule we talked about, like having that schedule where you plan things in every day. So find a way, schedule that relaxation in your day, just like you would, make it something like brushing your teeth. I remember one time I was watching a TV show and they said, just make exercise part of your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth, right? So you won't go out without brushing your teeth. Don't go out without exercising, kind of thing. Same with daily relaxation practices. You need to find ways to do that. Find coping exercises. So not physical, it could be physical exercise, but find ways to cope with the things that you're stressing with. Like I said, I can't say it enough. If you need to speak to someone, talk therapy is a great way, professional help. If you were having an ache or a pain, you'd go to the physical doctor, go to the mental health doctor as well. So find coping exercises. There's different ways to cope with things, like taking time aside, reflecting on them, as we mentioned earlier, to have that time to say, okay, this is what I did last time, and this wasn't so successful. Maybe I need to do it this way. And trying to find ways to help you to better cope with things as you deal with them. And I talked a little bit about that when I talked about the driving experience and how to step back. Just let me make sure. One thing that I always, yoga, meditation, journaling, drawing. Some people, I have one of those tablet notebook things, and I'll just sit there sometimes and draw. Sometimes that a good coloring book, that's a good way to get things to help you. So you're having coping skills or coping exercises. And do what you enjoy. I mentioned that in the last one. Try every day to reduce your stress by doing something that makes you feel positive, that you enjoy. I do always say this, especially in the emotional wellness class, be really careful about scrolling on your phone. You might think that, shopping or being on an app is not stressful for you, but it could be actually increasing your stress. And a lot of times being on your device a lot can cause you to be missing out on other things emotionally. And I'll quote my 2-year-old grandson. Lolly, no phones at the table. Try again, to make sure we're using it. He asked me a question. I said, I don't know. I'll look it up. And I looked it up. And then he says, no phones at the table. And I'm like, okay, so he's 2 and he knows. But we want him, and my son and daughter-in-law didn't tell him that, so I don't know where it came from. But yeah, you want to make sure when you're using it and how you're using it, you're not spending so much of your day on it. I cut out social media, and it greatly reduced the amount of hours I'm on my phone just by not doing social media. So yeah, what's that? Not at all. I am so much happier without it. I can't even tell you. And I will tell you, I was only on at night. Like when I got home from work, I'd scroll through for a couple minutes. It took hours off of the amount every day that I was on the phone. I didn't realize it. Yeah. There is, so I do feel a little disconnected from people because I'll see people and they'll be like, oh, your son's doing this or you're doing, and I'm like, oh, they knew that, but they're posting things. So sometimes I do, but at the same time, I really enjoy having the conversations with people and saying like, oh, this is what's happening in our family. Let me share that with you because that brings in another dimension. And it's nice. So yeah, I agree with the disconnection. And then what I've done too is I do allow the calendar to come up. So if it's like, say, my uncle's birthday, I text him instead of posting it on his page. I text him personally, so that, right. So it brings that little air of communication and we can go back and forth. So that's a nice aspect from not just my emotional standpoint, but my social. All right. So finally, positive. Again, heard me say this, be positive around stress. Try to find ways to cope with it, reduce it, and make it easier, to deal with. So the ability to express feelings, adjust to emotional challenges, cope with life stressors, and enjoy life. That's our emotional wellness definition again. So I just wanted to remind you about that. And we're going to sum up here, but we have a couple more things to do. We're going to make some goals. To sum up again, the 3 areas are feelings and emotions, self-care, and stress. So as you're setting goals, when we move forward with this next activity, try to think about ways that you might be able to focus in on one of these areas, a little step at a time, and make a goal around it to help yourself. So we're going to set a goal here. I'm going to remind you that emotional wellness is coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. So think about that. We talked about how to deal with stress, self-care, and feelings and emotions. And so we're going to cope effectively with those and life. We're going to be positive. So think about that definition. And we're going to talk about, next, we're going to talk about the goal activities. Okay. So we're going to set a SMART goal. If you've ever heard of a SMART goal, it's going to hopefully help us to have better emotional wellness here. But the SMART method system was created by George Doran, Arthur Miller, and James Cunningham. And each letter of SMART, of the little doohickey there, that refers to a different area. So S stands for specific, M stands for measured, A is attainable, R is realistic, and T is timely. So as we set our goals today around emotional wellness, we're going to try to be realistic. We're going to be specific about what that goal is. We're going to make it measured, attainable, realistic, and timely. So an example of a specific goal might be for better self-care, right? Self-care was one of the categories. I'm going to walk in nature twice a week. So walking in nature, being in nature has been shown to improve your emotional and spiritual wellness in research. So maybe that's a goal that you set. And you might be saying, well, Chris, this is emotional wellness. Why am I, going to walk? But again, they're all very interrelated with one another. You might set that measurement to be walking 2 days a week so that you can get out there and you have a measured goal for it. Attainable. Okay, I know that on Wednesdays I go to this group, on Fridays I go to that group. So I'm going to walk on Tuesdays and Thursdays in nature so that make it attainable. To be realistic, if I can't walk due to the weather, I live in New Jersey, it might be raining. I'll walk on Saturday and Sunday instead of Tuesday and Thursday. And then finally, make it timely. Start out on Tuesday, and then next week, add another day. Or maybe after a month, I'll add another day. So just think about how you can make that goal fit into that criteria. All right. one thing we want to do when we do this is we want to set an emotional goal here, but we want to revisit it. We want to look at the fact that I set a goal, and if Friday you set that goal and you haven't done it yet, then revisit it. Go back and say, okay, hold up. So set a goal to meet the emotional dimension of wellness, figure out what that is for you. Again, different for everybody. Use the SMART method that I just gave you an example of, that was, measured and specific and all those fun things. And then, like I said, revisit that goal if you need to, and then go back to it again. If after 6 to 8 weeks, you're saying, okay, Chris said I need better self-care. So what I decided to do was I was going to walk in nature. I haven't done that. I'm going to go back and revisit it. So don't beat yourself up, be positive, and say, I'm going to revisit it. If you get to that 6 to 8 weeks and you're still doing it and you're good to go, then build off of one of the other areas of this 8 dimensions of this dimension of wellness and fold that in, or fold in one of the other dimensions. So just think about how you're doing it and revisit it. Because remember, we talked about the coping exercises. We talked about being mindful of what we're doing. So that's what we want to do as we go through this goal setting as well. And then also come to another dimension of wellness class. We're going to have another one next month here at the library. We're usually the second or third Tuesday of the month. And I have the flyers up there. And then for those folks online, we will also, if you left your email, we'll email you resources after the class. So this is just a little goal setting activity you can do. This is, if anybody didn't get this ahead of time, and you want to scan in, and we'll send this to you also in the email if you're on the list, if you put your email down. Okay. And now finally, just to wrap up, for those of you that are online or that are here in person, this is a beautiful picture. Like I said, I was traveling. This is in New Mexico. This is in Albuquerque. And that's looking over a lavender farm. This is a historic farm. Isn't that beautiful? It was beautiful there. So I thought, I always put up my pictures of where we live because I think it's beautiful, but I'm like, I'm not really a desert girl, but this is beautiful. So I thought it would be nice for us to do a very quick mindful meditation, just to give you a tool to walk away with. So if you chose for your goal to put calmness in your life, we're going to try this meditation. I will send you resources for meditation after the presentation here to your email. But one thing I always get asked by people is like, I cannot meditate. When we meditate, we want to make sure that we're being positive. Your mind was meant to think. It's doing what it's supposed to. So when I hear people say, I can't do meditation because all these ideas are rushing in my head, I say, yep, that's what it's supposed to do. Our mind was meant to think. So if an emotion or a thought pops into your head, acknowledge it and let it go. If you, as we're going through the scan, if you happen to, or the exercise, if you happen to feel like all of a sudden, like, oh, I feel my shoulder hurts as I'm sitting here thinking and being calm, that's okay. Recognize it and just say it hurts, and let that go too. So a lot of times what I try to tell people to do is focus on their breathing. So that's something you have to do automatically in and out. So if you're having a hard time focusing, keeping your mind clean or clear, then just try to focus on that breathing. I also put the lovely picture up so that you could focus on that if you so desire. So this meditation is called a stop meditation, and it's a really good meditation for beginners or people starting out. So what stop stands for is stop whatever you're doing. T is for take deep breaths. O is for observe your thoughts, emotions, and body sensations. And then finally, P is proceed to whatever you were doing. So hopefully we'll do this stop meditation, and then you can go on about your day, and it'll have you a little bit more calm and relaxed. But like I said, doing this regularly can help you to sleep better. It can help you to deal better with stressful situations and relationships. It'll give you a little bit more grounding, and it helps you avoid that fight or flight and always being in that scenario. All right, so let's see what we're going to do. I covered all this already. All right, so one thing I will say before we start, mindful meditation, and this is a short one, so you shouldn't experience this, but sometimes it reduces our blood pressure because it gets us calm and our heart rate. So, and you're breathing slower. So when we open our eyes, you just want to sit for a minute afterwards so you don't pop up, so you don't feel dizzy. If you do feel dizzy, it's rather common, but in a short meditation like this, you might not experience that. But just to give you a little warming ahead against time. Okay. So what we're going to do for those that you are seated, we're going to sit in our seat. You want to make sure that your neck is nice and straight, and that you're not slouching forward. If you're watching virtually and you want to lay down, that's fine. You can lay on the floor. Usually if you lay on the floor to do this, you're in corpse position. So your feet are out to the side, your arm are outside, and you're on your back. So just take a few minutes here to get yourself settled. No right or wrong way to do this, and your thoughts are perfectly normal. Just try to excuse them if they do come into your mind, and find an anchor on your breath. Now, you can look up at the screen before you of the picture. You can gaze at that. You can put your gaze down, or you may close your eyes. All right, so we're going to start out by just taking a deep breath in and out. Again, in through the nose and out through the mouth. All right, one more time, deep breath in and deep breath out. All right, we're going to focus on our breath now at your own pace, in and out. Take a moment and notice what physical sensations you're experiencing in your body, a smell or a sound. Maybe tension somewhere in your body. Notice whatever that sensation is and continue to breathe through it and excuse it. Now we're going to bring our emotions into awareness. Continue breathing. What emotions are you feeling right now? Calmness, anxiousness, anger, happiness. Identify your emotions, or if you have none, that's fine. Avoid thinking I statements like I am calm, I am anxious, or I am angry, and instead acknowledge and separately label the emotions that come to mind. It is peace, it is worry, it is annoyance. Okay, we're going to take a deep breath in and out. Slowly open your eyes and take another deep breath in and out. So this technique's really useful before you go into an interview or a meeting, or if you're going, it might be a stressful situation. It allows you to ground yourself, recognize what emotions you're feeling. And it's also very useful throughout the day. Um, you know, as you navigate the day, again, it could help you to fall asleep. And you could see that's just a couple minutes. How did y'all feel? Do you feel a little more calm, right? So it's just an activity. I feel like some days, you get going and you're like really pacing through the day. It's good to just step back. It can clear your focus, give you a sense of calmness. It can also make you feel more grounded and have the ability to think more positively. So, like I said, I have a lot of guided meditation. If you're new to it, it can help. You don't have to necessarily do a guided meditation. You can sit and look at a beautiful scenery or be outside and just think about the wind on your face, or the smells around you or something like that. So you can take your time doing that and learning, but it is a practice. So I encourage everybody not to get discouraged. It's something that takes some time and getting used to if you're new to it, but the rewards are really, they're very good. So I encourage you to try it if you like. And these are the resources that I use today. I'm going to take questions from online if we have any first, Brooke, and then I'll take the audience here.
The first one is, can you bring the QR code back up for them to
I
scan?
certainly can. Thank you. Oh, did I get it? Nope.
One more.
There you go.
And
Yes.
then Cynthia made a great comment that writing in a gratitude journal at the end of the
Yes.
day is something she does and she finds it super helpful.
Thank you for sharing that. So the person online said that they do a gratitude journal at the end of the day, and she finds that very helpful. And I know we have colleagues that do that as well. And that helps so much because it allows you to focus on the positive again, bringing that positivity in. Anything else, Brooke, there?
Just those two.
Okay, thank you. How about in the audience? Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, great. Well, thank you for signing on. The people that are online, we appreciate having you here. And like I said, we will be back next month. Have a great day.